We decided to be back. We're doing another live. My dog is very upset about it. You can hear Wemby's crying. I have to go right back to work again. Yo, Kamala Harris did a Fox News interview with Brett Baier, and it's circulating all over the place. People are wondering, where do I watch it? Clips are going viral of them going back and forth with one another in a pretty combative interview, it seems. So I figured we needed to go live and we needed to react to it. Not only that, we're gonna have some fun, okay? If I'm gonna watch this Kamala Harris interview, I wanna do a little bit of a drinking game. We're here with Taylor, by the way. There's Taylor in Nashville.
Cheers, how's it going? Drop what time it is in your local region right now. I'm pushing, 9:30 right now, but yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
There we go, 7:37 over here in Los Angeles. And yeah, so we're gonna watch this little Kamala Harris interview that's apparently going viral. And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna play a little Kamala Fox interview drinking game, y'all. So get y'all drinks ready, okay? Mine has tequila, some cherry, some bubbly in it, okay? And here are the rules, okay? We're gonna drink if she says she's a new generation of leadership. You're gonna drink if she cackles, which I don't know if she's gonna be cackling during this interview. By the way, I made this in Canva with a reduce alcohol addiction with these steps template. So I'm not exactly reducing the alcohol addiction here. Another one we're gonna drink if she blames Donald Trump for a problem that she created. We're also gonna drink if she uses any Kamala catchphrases, you know, unburdened by what has been, fell out of a coconut tree, this, that, and the third, okay? And drink if she lies. Guys, we might be smashed by the end of this interview. So we're gonna get straight into it. This is 26 minutes long, and I've heard some reports that she was trying to make this interview shorter. She was gonna show up late. They told him, you know, instead of 25 minutes, let's make it 20 minutes. She was filibustering the whole time. We're gonna see if the business is true. Let's watch.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And
we should have done a word salad rule. New rule, Bill Maher, new rule. If she gets into word salad or says something that is completely discombobulated, you also have to drink. And we just heard it there. Let me replay what she just said in response to being asked about immigration.
Into the country over the last 3.5 years.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have.
It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. Okay, guys. She just meant to say it's a discussion that people want to rightly have, not a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have, but I digress.
And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
do you
just a number? Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
estimate
immigration
of
system.
I am speaking. Y'all remember that?
6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. and you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on.
I think she cackled when she said I was trying to answer that question. So.
Oh, you can't be that sensitive to the rules kicking in. And we're going to be drunk really fast.
We're going to be smashed.
On to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the elite. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't bring
middle
up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising.
Okay.
And
This is a very fine line you have to walk if you're Brett Baier. And it's very interesting because we know she's sort of in the lion's den as it pertains to media hits. She's been doing very friendly hits, you know, the Caller Daddies and the Charlemagnes and this, that, and the other. So now she's in the Fox News den. You have to be respectful in the questionings, in the questions that you're going through with her without coming off as you're being like too combative or trying to attack her, because she was gracious in granting you this interview and coming to sit down with you, so you don't want to make it look like you're steamrolling her. But at the same time, with her sort of filibustering, trying to change up the time, he has a lot of points that he wants to hit on many given issues. So it's kind of tough to think about how you're going to navigate talking to a person who's trying to evade the question while also trying to hit as many marks as you possibly can. I would be nervous as all get out to be having his job, but so far, so good. We're going to see how combative it gets, because I've been seeing a lot of people on the left saying he was really combative and constantly interrupting her, so we'll see if that holds true.
And I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border.
I'm gonna call a drink on that for lying, that she was trying to fix the problem at the border on day one, okay? We've got border problems the likes of which we haven't seen in a very, very long time. And mind you, on day one, they were, you know, rolling back all these Trump executive orders that protected our southern border, which led to this massive influx of illegal immigration. So I don't know that this was a problem she was trying to solve on day one, or a problem that she was trying to create on day one.
That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President.
Drink. That's a common Kamala catchphrase, talking point, where she goes back and says, I've already done this, you know, in my time and in my career. I already did this in San Francisco.
A couple
prosecuted
of things.
trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election,
Drink. Blamed Donald Trump for an issue she created.
Oh man, this is getting...
I'm taking light sips, ladies and gentlemen. Your girl is a lightweight.
this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you.
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly,
Love that they are so prepared for everything that she's going to say. The good thing about interviewing Kamala Harris is that she sticks to talking points. This was actually addressed in her interview with Charlemagne the God, where he says a lot of people feel like you're scripted. You're sticking to these talking points that you consistently throw out. And she said, I call that discipline. Well, the good thing about your discipline is that people are very well studied in where you're going to go in your answer on any given question. So they're prepared to fact check you immediately after you say something that is incorrect. And she's gone and skated through a lot of this campaign without being fact checked at all. We watched that in her presidential debate with Donald Trump, where he was fact checked on every occasion they possibly could, and she got absolutely nothing. And she's been skirting by, knowing that that's going to be the case. Not today, baby. Not today.
back to the original premise. Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you,
Before she answers this question, another brilliant move on behalf of Fox News. Fox News has a certain connotation to it. It's seen as very right-wing. It's labeled as white supremacist, white nationalist, whatever. If you have the opportunity to interview someone like Kamala Harris on Fox News, and you know that a ton of people are going to be tuning in, and they're going to be looking for those weak points in Fox News where it comes off like they're attacking her or they're pushing an ultra-right conservative message, you want to maintain a neutral ground. So Brett is sticking to his papers. He's sticking to outside sources and sources that the Democratic Party is very familiar with so that he can lay out his case without it seeming like he's putting any of his own personal bias into it or any bias that you would typically associate with Fox News. And it's great that they are allowing sort of other people and other quotes and other sources to tell the story. And he is just functioning as a neutral interviewer to lay out the question for her.
you owe
Brett,
those
I think it's
families
really- I think
an
it-
apology.
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
Drink, blaming Donald Trump for an issue she created. Let's do that again. So there you have it. I mean, she's going to lean on this at every opportunity she gets. Meanwhile, like the family members of these girls who have had their lives taken are at Trump rallies. They're speaking to our leadership and blaming this current administration for the deaths of their daughters. So I don't know how much you're going to do, Kamala, in trying to blame Trump for that.
Ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Genius.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
Ooh, it makes you kind of tear up a little bit. I mean, it's so awful. I'm already like imagining what it must be like to go through that with your daughter, and then in the middle of that be thrust into political controversy and be asked to make a statement about that. And it seems like she's impassioned enough to go ahead and do that and appear before our leadership while still sitting in the pain of losing her daughter, has to address the policies that she believes caused it in front of a room of leaders who, in looking at them, you can kind of say some of you are responsible, like the establishment that exists right now are responsible for the loss of my daughter. And here I am addressing you after this massive loss while I'm currently a grieving mother to tell you to change these policies so that other people's daughters don't have their lives taken. And a wonderful thing for Fox News to allow her to be on air and to show her video, to let her speak about it, because it's different when you have somebody like Brett Baier explain this is what the mother of a 12-year-old who I believe was brutally raped and then murdered. Okay, this is what she said. And you can sort of read that quote off the paper, or you can allow that mother to speak for herself. And that is extremely powerful.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual.
Even if you felt deeply within your soul that you are not personally responsible for this 12-year-old girl's death, even if that's truly what you felt, which we know Kamala doesn't feel that way. She knows what she's responsible for. She's actively hopping on air and lying right now to the American people. But even if you felt I'm being wrongfully convicted in the death of this 12-year-old girl, why not, as a person who is still alive, as a person who is about to be ushered in, possibly, to the biggest position of leadership in this country, say, you know what, for any ounce of this girl's death that I'm responsible for, I am 100% apologetic, and I take ownership over that. That's what a real leader would do, regardless of how you feel. If it is the general sentiment that the general population believes that you're responsible for this 12-year-old girl's death, you should look internally and think about why that is and take some ownership and take some responsibility. And still, she beats around the bush, she skirts the question, she fails to personally apologize to this mother who has lost her child. Unbelievable. And we think that this person should be the president of the United States.
Who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer?
In all
Blaming
fairness,
Trump.
I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Except you rolled back a bunch of executive orders, and you spent so much time not going to the border. In fact, when you were interviewed and told that you had not been to the border, you responded, and I haven't been to Europe. I don't see where we're going with this question. So clearly somebody didn't care about the issues until it became time for, an election where you have to claim to care about these issues. She was the one responsible for the border, and this is what we're dealing with on the other end of it. And it is not just death and destruction. It is drugs. It is crime. It is people taking housing away from Americans, people taking government resources away from Americans. And this is not to blame illegal immigrants who are trying to come here for better opportunities and a better life. It is just to say we have to have an immigration system in place. And as of late, we do not. And under this Biden-Harris administration, emphasis on the Harris part of that, quadrupling our numbers of illegal immigration. And now she's going to say we're working on the issue to bring it back down. Conveniently, they're working on it as she's campaigning to be the president of the United States.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care.
A smart thing they could have done, and I think would have landed harder, is to play video clips of her actually saying this to her, so that she actually has to contend with her own voice. The American people have to hear the voice that she had a year ago, 6 months ago, a month ago, a week ago, and then hear her now try to cover up those issues. I think that would have been far more powerful than hearing him say it.
Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate.
Sorry, that is a Kamala Harris catchphrase. I will follow the law, okay? When she gets called out for doing something that is clearly deeply impacting the American people, our fellow citizens, and she gets asked what she's going to do to change this, she says, I will follow the law.
Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So
I will follow the law. Now, you would have seen a micro expression on her face right then when she wasn't expecting to be re-asked the question in a different way. And her only answer that she has as one of her scripted talking points is, I will follow the law. So in a moment there, she was thinking, do I answer with the same thing that I just said 2 seconds ago and come off as scripted, which is a valid criticism that I'm receiving after every single interview I do? Or do I try to give a different play on that answer? And she attempted to give a different play on that answer. Instead of follow the law, she said they would follow the federal laws. Awesome.
Decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel, to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people.
And then I abandoned all of those values as soon as I get any sort of meaningful form of leadership in this country. This is always what she does. I'm the only one who's ever done this. As an attorney, I did this. In San Francisco, I did this. Okay, you can talk about how you did it. Why aren't you doing it now?
And cross
real quick, Kamala, she also mentioned, I saw this on X just before we went live. This is from Mike Gonzalez. An interesting thing about Kamala is that she bragged about this interview. She bragged about prosecuting the Guadalajara cartel. That's interesting, as it dissolved in the 1980s, years before Harris became a prosecutor. She also mentioned that she has not decriminalized border crossings as vice president, but the CBP-1 app effectively did that, and they're flying people into the country. They've just created this temporary protected status, which is essentially the decriminalization of crossing the border. So I think we might have to take a couple more sips on those.
Yep, I think that's drink for a lie, or lies. My goodness gracious.
With the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally, and I will do that work as vice president.
Okay, we've spent 10 minutes and 30 seconds on the border. I think that's plenty of time. I know that is the primary issue for, I think, many who are going to be voting in this election cycle, but we need to hammer her on so many other things, so we better be moving on soon. Brett is brat, by the way. I tweeted that out after I saw that. Brett is brat. What are we talking about? Kamala is brat. Brett is brat for this.
I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed.
Fucking hell.
You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
Now, I need this fact checked. I need to know whether or not what she's saying is true, that this was allowed during the Trump administration in any way, shape, or form. Regardless, we know that in the past 3.5, 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration, there have been many laws rolled out to protect gender transitions and gender transition surgeries, and to have your taxpayer dollars fund people who are undergoing these gender transition surgeries, which is never something that the American taxpayer should have to pay for under any circumstance, and especially the circumstance of somebody being an inmate in prison. And not to mention, he could really hit her hard here and say, even if these were policies that were put forth, I guess, during the Trump era, or that Trump was allowing in the background without addressing, they have done significant damage to women, the definition of women, women's spaces, in their whole Title IX rewrite, and all these different things that they've rolled out. And we cannot deny that this is an issue that has grown on at an exponential rate while she has been in leadership as the vice president of the United States.
I did just pull this up, Amala, this is Tiana Lowe on X, who's a columnist for the DC Examiner. She says, Kamala Harris is lying again. The Trump administration fought a criminal suing for the taxpayers to pay for a transgender surgery. No surgeries ever occurred under the Trump administration. It was the Biden-Harris administration that settled.
Oh my gosh. So
guess we got to take another
drink. We got to drink. Wow. It's not convenient.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy, and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
And no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters, because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people.
Oh, please. And let's not emphasize how much money is spent on ads and marketing during this election cycle, because, baby girl, you have millions of dollars behind you from some of the largest elites in our world, in our news media, in our entertainment, in banking, anything, you name it. She's got billions of dollars behind her. So,
whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote.
If it's quite remote, then why were you referencing it? Why were you using as, your own platform to say that you are going to help with people getting taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries? If it's such a remote, minute issue, then why were you talking about it? And why were you saying this was going to be some progressive thing that you were going to usher forward in the clip that we literally just watched of you saying it?
And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker, would ignite.
This is another talking point. I don't know if we can drink for all those that she's just used. She's used them quite a bit there. But a brilliant redirect on her part to just move away from it, talk about what you're doing, talk about the positive things that are going to impact people. Because at the end of the day, this whole trans thing, as it relates to the general population, is quite small if we're looking at the numbers. She's right about that, but you can press her on the fact that she felt the need to address it, and she felt the need to advocate for taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries. So she's moving and redirecting, and that's a smart move for her.
Inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country.
Would you call that a new generation of leadership, guys? Had to drink for that one.
My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
There it is, buddy. There it is. I knew we were going to get to a new generation of leadership somehow, in the many words she just said, to essentially say, I'm going to make changes.
For example, I'm someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing. Addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Right. Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we have been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has...
She has to say the last decade. She can't say the last 4 years because that's wholly, relegated to her and President Biden. So she has to say last decade, and she has to attribute it to rhetoric. I don't give a damn what rhetoric is coming out of a leader's mouth if my pockets have money in them. Okay? If I'm going to the gas station, I can fill up my car and I'm not sweating, putting my card up to the pump. That's what I care about. So we can talk about rhetoric and divisiveness, and he puts out mean tweets, this, that, and the other, but we all lived through the Trump economy, and we're all currently living in the Biden-Harris economy, and we all know how that's going. It doesn't matter if you're on the left, it doesn't matter if you're on the right. We're all experiencing it, and we know what was better.
It's been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that's...
It's interesting because her rhetoric about Donald Trump has led to people pointing guns at him, not fingers.
Just that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than...
We have more in common than what separates us. Kamala catchphrase number 6,000.
70% of people
that is
tell
about
pollsters,
turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, That track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam,
Ooh, she wasn't prepared for that comment. She wasn't prepared. I'm actually going to go back and listen to her response to that again. She was not prepared for him to say something like that. And her sort of, the thing that she does is to revert back to blaming Donald Trump. But you can't blame Donald Trump for lack of leadership because you were the leader, baby girl. You're supposed to be Brett, not Donald Trump. So are you? And Donald Trump was running for office. Okay, doesn't running for office mean you have any power over what happens in the United States and how our economy is impacted? No, it doesn't. That was rough. Let's watch it again.
The page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
You can see the words coming out of her mouth. You can see the moment that she realizes she shouldn't finish the sentence because it doesn't make sense with what she was just told. And she abandons the point to laugh. One more time.
Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Ooh, and luckily he interrupted her. Now that is a moment where if I was Brett, silence is your best friend. Allow her to dig the grave there and finish that answer. And because he interrupted her, he allowed her an escape from what she was about to say. And that's unfortunate. But you know, it's a high stress situation. I'd be nervous. I'd probably be doing the same thing.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people
you're the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed.
Oh my gosh. Can we just sit on that for a moment? It's not supposed to be easy. That's not the question he asked you. Yes, why is Trump running laps around you right now? And why is he bringing in black voters? I mean, she's still probably winning amongst women, but, you know, Hispanic voters are jumping ship to go and support Donald Trump. You have all these, Border Patrol is saying, we're leaving, the borders are behind, and we're supporting Donald Trump. It's not supposed to be easy. Well, damn, you're certainly not making it easy for yourself with your damn track record is what's happening.
Supposed to be, it is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the
Yeah, this is another one of her talking points. So clearly there was a lot of training and preparation before this interview, as I'm sure there was for Brett Baier and for her too, but much more for her because this is the first real, like, stepping into the lion's den, as I said before, that she's doing. So she has to lean on that. Demean, demoralize, talk down to, you know, divisive. She's getting all her D's in relation to Donald. They probably did a little chart for her of all the little D words she'll use after she says the word Donald. And then she's, you know, spitting them out and doing this whole thing over again. Because instead of talking about the positive things she's done, which she can't because she doesn't have any record of doing anything positive, she has to bring down the candidate she's running against.
One who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So
the fact that she's so predictable that they had that damn clip ready and said just slate it in. Play Donnie responding to this right now because she's so predictable. Oh, but that's discipline, isn't it, Kamala? We're just disciplined. We know which talking points to go to.
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
And with all due respect, Ms. Harris, actually with no respect whatsoever, everything you're saying during this interview right now is you covering your ass because it's nothing you've said for your entire career here in the United States. With no respect.
He was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest.
I'm sorry.
He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
That doesn't seem like a President Trump track record. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure we still got some January 6 people that are sitting in the prison right now. They're in jail. They're locked up. They're in the clinker. They're in the slammer, okay? Because of you and your administration. And they disagreed with you politically, didn't they? Who is doing a whole campaign about misinformation and sort of tamping down on free speech so that we can't use, threatening language or hate speech or spread misinformation? What does that ultimately look like? It looks like going after people who disagree with you politically. We all watched that during the COVID lockdowns. We've watched it every single election cycle. When you try to state your opinion, they label you as being misinformed. They throttle your content. We've been here. She's the candidate that's running with that. We watched as Tim Walz was in a vice presidential debate with J.D. Vance. They went back and forth on the topic of free speech. And when J.D. Vance brought up the fact that Walz and Harris are not free speech candidates, Walz actually added on to it and said, yes, we are going to go after threatening language. We are going to go after misinformation. So who is truly attempting to go after those that disagree with them? Never mind the entire witch hunt that Donald Trump has found himself in the entire time he's been in American politics, the lawfare, the 34 felony counts that they've just brought against him that sort of accumulated out of thin air, essentially. And we actually just had a court throw out a lot of these cases and say, there's no way that lawfare was not active here. There is no way a case like this would have been brought up if you were not attempting to attack a political candidate in the moment of an election. This is what drove all the lawfare that we're seeing against Donald Trump right now, and actual judges stated that. So much so that they were considering going after these lawyers and these prosecutors who decided to even bring the case in the first place. And this just happened in the last few days. So who is actually attempting to attack the people that disagree with them? I'd venture to say, and I'd go out on a strong limb and say, it is the Harris-Walz campaign. It's Kamala Harris.
And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat.
If I'm her right now, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to take a deep breath and speak in a more respectful tone, because when you are vying to be the president of the United States, you need to remain, with a mild temperament, despite, even if you feel like you're getting attacked, you want to remain clear, consistent. She's getting a little bit too triggered right now. And rightfully so. You're in an adversarial moment right now, but you need to learn how to take a deep breath and calm down. And people are going to call me misogynistic. You wouldn't say that if it was a man. Yes, I would. If a man was getting out of hand and he was getting a little bit too triggered, he should probably bring it down too, especially if he's attempting to be president. Okay?
To the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump.
The significance of that.
You call Donald Trump He's misguided. You say now
he's
unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
What I would do for this question, play an audio clip, play a video of her saying that, and on that same day, get reference footage for where Biden was at the very moment that she made that quote. Don't even pussyfoot around the issue, okay? The day she said it, get a clip of Biden not being able to speak. Get a clip of Biden being off track. It would take a matter of 15 minutes to maybe put those clips together and paint a vivid picture of the fact that she's willing to hop on TV and lie to the American people about somebody who is clearly mentally unstable, clearly senile, clearly experiencing something like late-stage dementia, and now she wants to comment about Donald Trump.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions.
Experiment was the right word. That was a goddamn Freudian slip, because it was experiment having a president with dementia.
On behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again.
Let's put this to bed, okay? Real quick, let's put this to bed. We all know what was going on with President Biden. We all know that he had dementia. We all know that he was literally using the bathroom in his pants as he was president. Okay, these are the things that we were experiencing. And we can actually document this, look through it. We can see all the gaps. We can see all the moments where he's lost his train of thought, where he didn't know how he was answering question. He refers to President Zelensky as Putin. We all watched that. With the whole classified documents thing, we had two presidents with classified documents in places where they weren't supposed to be. They go after Trump as hard as they possibly can for that. And then when President Biden has classified documents in his own estate where they're not supposed to be, they hand over those documents and the DOJ essentially says, you know, he's actually so mentally unfit that we can't even go after him for having these classified documents. Meanwhile, this guy is the sitting president of the United States, and she's the VP the whole time, watching this happen, saying he's as sharp as a tack, saying that all of his facilities are intact. She is a liar. She is a first-class liar. And now they're going to try to spin this same rhetoric on Donald Trump. Meanwhile, you spent your whole time covering for Joe Biden. It looks so disingenuous. And you know, I would hope that people on both sides are recognizing this, that this is such an inconsistency in her story and in how she's showing up right now.
Including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact.
And those people left Donald Trump out to dry because of what happened on January 6th. And we all know why the things happened on January 6th. We all know it was the perfect sort of recipe for the left going after the right and labeling them as insurrectionists. So I would imagine that's why a lot of people jump ship. What Kamala should have to explain is, while you're vice president of the United States, why are all your aides and political staff jumping ship and actually quitting their jobs, choosing not to work with you, saying that you are lazy, saying that you need them to brief you on every single thing that is going down on a meeting because you don't read the pages that have been handed to you before heading in to talk to important leaders, heading in to talk to our fellow, representatives in this country who are meant to represent American constituents. There's a whole lot of reasons why somebody who's associated with Donald Trump, with all the lawfare and all the political attacks that he is currently receiving, would jump ship and leave him behind. But you're in power, and people are jumping ship and leaving you behind. And it's a track record that you have for a very long time, including your time in San Francisco, where they have articles written about how lazy you were and how you had a job handed to you, and we all know why it was handed to her. We can't say that she slept her way to the top. Apparently, that's a misogynistic thing to say, even though we can literally track it throughout her whole career. But we often find that when you hand somebody a job that they're unqualified for, they don't necessarily do that job. And Kamala Harris seems to find herself in this just lucky position of being a woman who is constantly handed a job that she is not ready for. And I'll be damned if the job becomes US president, okay? I'm gonna do everything in my power between now and then to stop this woman from being the president of the United States.
That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said.
A number of experts, meaning like any random average Joe you ask on the street who is the biggest adversary to the United States, our experts would have said maybe it's China.
But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
How are we helping those proxies, though? And you're responsible for that, too. So let's talk about it. It's really interesting that you seem to be, like, pretty much in bed with the closest enemy of the United States, or the biggest enemy of the United States. Not to mention, we don't even need to get into the whole Taliban withdrawal and all that happened with this administration. We don't seem to have a good track record when it comes to taking care of enemies. In fact, we're like, here's money. Here's arms. Here's helicopters. Oh my gosh.
Also, she's asked which one is the bigger threat between Iran and China, or why is Iran the bigger threat? And her answer is effectively, I was there in the Situation Room when we approved actions to take against Iran. It's like, it's a total non-answer, but she seems very well trained for this thing, because if you're not paying attention, she can get away with things like that. But it's like, wait a second, no, you totally just dodged the entire question. Or maybe it is obvious that she's dodging. But yeah.
Oh my gosh, constantly bobbing and weaving. Okay.
Those proxies were getting funded by
my
Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran.
Blaming Donald Trump for a problem we created. Drink up, ladies and gentlemen, and they thems and zers.
In check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go towards
that
the Iran regime.
That we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches. Not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America.
We can go bar for bar on that, Kamala. Remember when you were in your presidential debate and you said we have no active duty military in a war zone right now as a nation? And then you had active duty military filming you saying that while they are in active war zones, and saying, where the fuck are we right now if this is what she's saying? So I'm pretty sure someone else has a better grasp on what our military is doing currently, not to mention the 13 service members that died in your pullout of Afghanistan.
America's military and military service people calling them suckers and losers
Hamas,
has diminished the significance.
She's lying again. Suckers and losers has been debunked. I don't even know how many times, just like the very fine people lie.
Talking over each other. I apologize.
Well, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are critics
that they feel.
who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice
I also want to point out that she's using a tactic here of putting as much space in between each word she uses as she possibly can, because that is a way of getting through this interview without having to be attacked with other questions in which you are unprepared for. This was supposed to be a 25 to 30-minute interview. They came in late. They said instead it's just going to be 20 minutes. So every single second in between the words that you use matters. And I want people to know how strategic these politicians actually are before heading into interviews like this, even friendly ones. They are laying out to the second everything this woman is going to say, how much breath she can use in between words without sounding like she's trying to skirt the question or evade what is being asked of her. That is how much they train in preparation for these things.
Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
A lot of
brilliant thing to say. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. Not about the issues facing the American people, not about your plan as a possible president of the United States, not about your record so far. I hope you got in what you wanted to say about Donald Trump.
Things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to kamalaharris.com. And you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them.
I know it was a very blank website up until recently, but I've made sure my aides went and put up a policy for me, because I know I don't personally have that and I can't personally reference that in this interview. But check out the website that I didn't work on.
And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
and that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President, and they're giving me a hard rap here.
Well, I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Okay, there we go. We closed that one out. What an interesting performance. I think she held her own to the extent that she could, being in an adversarial interview where she doesn't have much to go off to defend herself. So there's that. I think she worked with what she had. There were moments where, as I said before, she got maybe a little bit too triggered and could have reeled it back a little bit and exercised some composure, even if somebody is going after you and going at you hard. I wouldn't say he went after her all that hard. He was very neutral in his responses to her, which is exactly what you want to be. He just made sure to keep on top of those fact checks and go for her. But yeah, I hope people outside of the Fox News space are seeing this and that they're actually getting a clear depiction of what this interview was like, because she does have the benefit of the general vibe about Fox News that I think most people in America have. If you're not on the right, you're not a fan of Fox News. Even many on the right, I myself am not a huge fan of Fox News, even though I've appeared on there on several occasions. It does have a sort of thing about it that she's at least cushioned by the fact that a lot of people are not going to take the extra effort to check out Fox News, nor would they in their normal lives. So hopefully this interview jumps out of that box that it's currently in and other media sites start referencing it. But like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they're just going to pick the best clips where she looks the best and she looks the most composed, and they're going to run with that. We're not going to get the awkward moments. We're not going to get the parts where she veers off script or the parts where she repeats her script. And that's unfortunate. Now, we do have some responses on Twitter. Joe Scarborough says he was shockingly rude in reference to Brett Baier. Brian Stelter, formerly of CNN, says Trump refused to debate Harris again, so she did the next best thing and did battle on Fox. News junkies will dissect specific answers, but normies will just hear that she went into enemy territory and survived and thrived, and that is what she is counting on. Because a lot of people are not willing to engage with Fox News to even check out the interview or listen to Brett Baier speak. So she's banking on the fact that she can say, I took this adversarial interview and Donald Trump is not going to do a second debate with me. Which if I'm Donald Trump, I'm taking a second debate. I'm prepping a little harder for this debate and doing a second one as soon as possible and just slamming her on the fact checks and all these different points. But I digress. I don't know if we're going to get one of those. Keith Olbermann says, I'd like to congratulate Kamala Harris on her victory in the presidential debate against Brett Baier, despite Baier's compulsive interruptions. Sorry, the liquor must be hitting me after all the drinking.
Yeah, you feeling tipsy? I was going to say.
I guess so. After his compulsive interruptions. So yeah. I don't know. I feel like they're running cover for her. To me, that was not a great interview. And I'm trying to be, unbiased in that. In the presidential debate, she slammed Donald Trump in more ways than one. It was rigged, largely. But even with their two performances just held on their own, I feel like she did much better with him. And the scripted format sort of gave way to her dominating him and baiting him in a way. And when you're releasing the script for the first time, it's going to work really well. The thing is, she's leaned on that script ever since her success at the presidential debate. And now it's feeling old and tired and stale. And people are hearing the same talking points. And the pattern recognition is working in a way it's never worked before. And we can see the puppet that exists in the empty suit here. Guys, we're going to read your super chats. Let's hear from you guys.
All righty. We're going. So many of y'all here tonight. Thank you for joining us. A lot of interest in this.
We might not get to all of your super chats, just to let you know, because there's 20,000 of you watching right now, but we are going to try to get through as many as possible and hear from you guys, okay? Normally we read them all, but we'll see.
All right. Legitly Spelunking said, here's a drink on me. You're going to need it. Thank you. Another one from Jira Lara, who says, you're going to need a drink on me. Alex Slusher says, 2 live streams in one day. Surprised to be sure, but a welcome one.
Hey, we're hustling. Had to react to this one.
Yeah. Alex Daly says, hey guys, Alexis from Sydney, Australia here. Thanks for always being my favorite part of the mornings and occasionally afternoons. Currently 1:45 p.m. Thursday afternoon here in the inner city of Sydney.
Nice. Love it. Love Sydney too.
I feel like people in different regions are getting a rare opportunity to tune in live because this is not our normal time.
Super cool.
John O'Rourke says, I was making Velveeta shells and cheese during this interview and about burned my shells 10 minutes into it. Claps for Brett. LOL.
Yeah, he did good. Brett is brat. That's what I had to tweet out after this.
Brett is brat. Amala, a super chatter, says Dems will just call it an attack no matter what happens.
Yeah, I guess so. That's what they have to do. But I think he remained pretty calm. I didn't get any sort of attack vibes. Maybe a few interruptions where it didn't need to happen, but yeah, nothing crazy.
Bullet says, hello, Amala Taylor. How are you two doing today? We're doing good. Just hanging out on that grind.
Yeah, you know it.
Nicole Aldrich says, I'm currently writing an essay on healthy debate and conflict resolution skills. I have a feeling I'll get examples of what not to do from this video.
Hey, there you go. Hopefully.
Yeah, filibuster and use word salad and preordained talking points to, get through a 15-minute interview.
Exactly. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
The key is to show up late and then take as long as possible in between words to avoid actual conversation.
That is the key.
Abstract says, glad she finally had to answer real questions and had nowhere to run.
Yeah, I wish we could have it's so hard. Given the task of only having 25 minutes, it's hard you give them places to run because you have to move on to other questions. So where you could have maybe sat with silence and allowed them to, get themselves in a deeper mess, you don't have time for it. You just got to keep moving. So it's tough.
Yeah, I think she had to face real questions, but I wouldn't say that she had to answer them. And that's just the nature of it, though. Like, there is no answer. How do you answer the question of, like, Jocelyn Nungary's mother? Like, you're not going to say, I take responsibility for this, even though that's the only correct answer. So the best she can do is obfuscate. And I feel like, honestly, she did a pretty good job of that. It reminded me of, like, living in California, watching Gavin Newsom, when the media asks him, why is homelessness skyrocketing? Why is everything so expensive? Why is crime expensive? Why were you such a hypocrite on COVID lockdowns? And he just has this way of telling brazen lies and not, saying it with a straight face. And she did a lot of, like, appealing to experts and saying, like, well, the authority says this, the experts say this.
Right.
And that's the problem. The Americans don't trust the experts because they've been responsible for the terrible onslaught that we've been living through.
What would have been so interesting but so risky if you're Brett Baier is to pick the hardest possible question, one that she has never answered throughout her entire political career, and dedicate the entire interview to trying to get her to answer this question, and say right out of the outset, I'm going to dedicate as much time as it takes to pin you down on an answer on this question and see how long it takes her. And if it takes 10 minutes, if it takes 15 minutes, it doesn't matter. It looks insane either way. And then you use whatever duration of the interview you have left to hammer home your other points, because that's really what she needs to be criticized for. They get to, like, bob and weave and evade all day long, and they're never getting directly called out for it because of the sake of time. So it'd be interesting to see that happen.
And maybe the Joe Rogan interview could flip the script on that. But I don't know. Do you think she'll do it after this?
I don't think she'll do a Joe Rogan interview after this. I think she needed to prove one time that she would talk to somebody who disagrees with her.
And I don't know if this proved anything, but she can try to say it did. Anne Lapoute says, how exciting. I work nights and sleep during the day, so I never get to catch a live. Just want to say I love your show. Awesome. You definitely change how I view the world.
Thank you. I'm glad to have such a role in that. That's an honor.
Yeah, high praise from Anna. Thank you. The Lucid Experience says, if this is a Trump drinking game, I'm already at alcohol poisoning.
I'm feeling it. I'll tell you that.
Scott Ward says America is owed an apology for Joe and her's term, as well as from anyone that voted for those two.
And you know what? I don't think, like, an apology would really bring you down all that much as far as your voter base. I think you could really give off a genuine apology as a politician, and it might actually reinforce the idea that you should be president. And nobody's willing to do that because they're not willing to take the heat that exists on the other end of an apology, which is just so disgusting. It's just awful. I don't think people understand how powerful it is to be vulnerable enough to apologize. Like when J.D. Vance in his vice presidential debate said, you know what, now that I've listened to constituents on some of the things that I said, maybe they were a little bit too extreme. I want American women to be able to trust me. I want the people who are under my leadership to be able to trust me. That's powerful. It doesn't, get printed in the press the next day. J.D. Vance apologizes for his track record or whatever. What gets printed the next day is J.D. Vance wants to be trusted. And they're not willing to do that because they lack humility. And people who lack humility just can't apologize, no matter what.
Yeah, and therefore they come off as, untrustworthy and phony. Monica Leah says Kamala means horrible in the Finnish language.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thank you for that insight from Finland.
Fitting. What does Amala mean then? I'm scared.
Oh, gosh, yeah. K-Dubs says there will be no election. DOD just repealed posse comitatus by authorizing lethal force on U.S. citizens. That happened yesterday.
I don't know what that is.
We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
Sounds mildly concerning.
Yeah, it does.
Robert Gearing says, thanks for putting together a great channel. So many enjoy. Fact check what she is saying. There are so many lies. We tried to get as many as we could.
It was riddled with lies.
Coming in hot. Vladstein says, Kamala Harris, I came from a middle-class family and my mom had 3 jobs and we all worship the cow as holy.
She just constantly is saying, we didn't hear middle-class family this time that I can think of.
That was one of the parameters for the drinking game and she got by it.
She got it by.
I was breathing a sigh of relief that we didn't make her saying, let me be clear, or I have been clear, because that was like every answer before she said something that was not clear at all. And how about the moment where she's like, well, you and I both know what we're talking about, Brett. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Actually, I don't know. Fill me in, sis.
Terry Short says Amala is absolutely the best, most level-headed person out there. Did you know you're the best?
That's high praise. Take it back now. Can't live up to that.
Best. London Armstrong, I'm 17 and I started watching your videos over the summer. You have inspired me to finally think about the political problems around me. Much love.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. I'm glad that something in these videos has sparked something for you and it resonates with you. That is amazing. Amazing.
Sarah, she has billions of dollars behind her, and I'm still getting ads from her asking me for $5, supporting you instead.
Dude, the Kamala ads that I'm getting on YouTube, I had to go to YouTube Premium just to run away from her and Joe Biden and Barack Obama telling me to vote for her because I'm black.
Well, Google's her biggest corporate donor, so joke's on you. Yeah, she's still getting that bread anyways. Syria de Flora says you should check out Honey Badger Radio, specifically their live stream side. They talk about politics, gaming, and issues that affect men and women in dating, education, and work. Great community.
Okay, I'll have to check them out. Never heard of them.
Amala again says she sounds like Lewis Griffin. I don't know who that is.
From Family Guy, the wife from Family Guy.
Yeah,
she kind of does a little bit. She kind of is like, she's got like this natural like slur to her language. I don't know if it's nervousness or what's going on.
You can tell
there.
she was like told to like speak, like you said, take a long time between words, but also just speak slowly and calmly. And noticeably, we didn't hear any, you better thank a union member accent. We didn't hear
Right.
the Irish accent didn't come out for this one.
You know, empathy, man.
Yeah, and I hope your family is okay and your friends are okay. She did that one at the Latino.
She didn't do that when talking about the border, so saved us there.
Yeah. To be fair, Brett's a white guy, so maybe she was just putting on her white voice for that conversation.
I think so. Adaptable.
Juliet says Brett Baier is trying to press her, but is still letting her get away with a lot. We need somebody like you to talk with her. Cheers.
Well, you have to.
Job.
It's a tough job. You have to. You can't attack her too much because that's not what you're there to do. You, as an interviewer, as soon as we'll see what happened with ABC and Donald Trump. As soon as the moderators who are meant to sort of facilitate get a little bit too out over their skis, then you start to look, oh, this is not feeling like an even playing ground. You want it to come off as even as possible so that she can make her own, shit sandwich, not you making it for her.
Yeah, I liked your point about, letting her drown in her own words. And it did feel like out of the gate, Brett came off really adversarial. And I think if you if you only tuned in for that beginning piece, like that might be one of your takeaways, that it was more hostile than it needed to be. But over the course of the interview, I think Brett comported himself pretty fair and evenly.
And luckily he started out on the border, which most people are passionate about. And he started off with very emotional stuff. So you can sort of attack when you're talking about like people dying and, people losing their lives. And if there's any sort of issue you can do that on, it's that one. But yeah, 100% agree.
Not a lizard person says Kamala prosecuted international criminal organizations. After that, knowing what a threat they are, she advocated for open border policies that benefit them.
Yeah, it's like, shouldn't your track record sort of inform your present record? Oops.
Yeah, what did you learn by coming face to face with drug criminals that are crossing the border, like across the border? Oh, yeah, just let them in. Open them up.
All in.
Don Patton and Josh Kelly sent super chats. No message. Thank you guys. JSOL says Trump is watching and laughing right now. Never interfere with an enemy while he's in the process of destroying himself. Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yep. Just let him go. Let him run rabid. And that's the interesting thing, is that she was kept away from the spotlight for quite some time. And now all of a sudden they're on this like media blitz, appearance. And that can work if you have somebody who's dynamic enough and adaptable enough to change their language and change their footing based on who they're talking to. She can't do that. She just changes her accent and uses the same talking points. So you're getting all these interviews back to back where she's completely flopping but using the same thing over and over again, and that doesn't work. If there's one thing I can say about Donald Trump, if you don't like the way he speaks, you're getting something different from him every single time you watch an interview from him. It is never the same performance, because it's not a performance. He is being himself, and he's so adaptable to the people that he's speaking to. He can talk to Kanye West and like sort of dap him up, but in a way that's natural. He can go and speak to Congress, but in a way that is like forceful, and he speaks to press in a way that sort of puts them in their place, but also, establishes dominance, but gets them answers. So he's got that power behind him and in his wheelhouse. She's got none of that, and everybody else is having to sort of pick up the pace for her and do that work for her.
Yeah, and this is where not doing any kind of adversarial interviews earlier on is kind of backfiring, because now at the very most critical moment in the campaign, you're finally subjecting yourself to it. Almost seems like out of desperation. But the lack of experience actually being down to earth, coming across in an authentic way is really coming through.
Yeah.
Chicken Pork Adobo says, wow, 19K viewers. Congratulations, Amala. Let's not burden her by what has been, guys. Leftist media are trying hard to defend her right
Yeah,
now.
big stream. I had a feeling you guys wanted to see this interview, so we were like, let's just go live and do it. And we don't regret that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Everyone here in the U.S. on the East Coast is like laying in bed right now watching.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, here for it. Irritated Citrus says, Kamala, I would never call the American people stupid. Also, Kamala, Gen Z is stupid. Did she say something like that?
I think so, because she was like, I think she said like Gen Z is like stupid and lazy or something like that. I'd have to look up the exact quote, but she did say something to that effect. Yeah.
Akemi Sen says, I've been watching you for a year now. Thank you for opening my eyes and inspiring me to view the world with more nuance.
Oh, thank you so much for that nice compliment. We're always trying to have a little bit of nuance on this show.
J-Sol again says, maybe Kamala winning the debate was a blessing in disguise, made her overconfident to go out and do these interviews where she's crashing and burning.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I think the script went so well the first time it was revealed to the world that they just decided to lean on it, and the leaning on it is getting real old. Yeah, unfortunate.
And I don't think she'd be doing this if the polls and momentum weren't trending against her so much. You know, if she could, she would be doing the Biden 2020 strategy, which is hide in the basement as much as humanly possible. Let the media do the work for you.
Yep.
Jeffrey says, Trump wins if you vote. Too big to rig.
Trump wins if you vote? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know about that. I have
too big to rig. I mean, like, do you mean he needs to win very big so that it's too big to rig? I think that's probably true.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with this one. I don't know what's going to go on.
Arlette Strachan says she is an enemy to herself. She cannot save herself. She is out in the ocean and her life jacket can't save her. She has sunk to the bottom. She is an absolute disgrace.
Yep. Silence is your bestie when it comes to Kamala Harris. And I like the poetic way in which you stated that. We did get a $50 super chat from Johnny Franco Shosky Lou, who says, will you beautiful me? You're so date. I'm really stupid. Kamala is so cool. I don't know exactly what you're trying to say, but I can read between the lines. I think it's a compliment. Thank you, Johnny Franco.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Johnny. Lioness says, first live watching from Australia. It's 2:30 p.m. here. Love your content and stoked to catch you live today.
Stoked.
You are you are inspiring for us young women.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet. Gonna give me a
cheating in live down under.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Ramsey sends a super chat, no message. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Appreciate
Ricardo Milan says, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Give them hell. Mel just sends a little fox emoji holding a heart. Thank you. Carlette Strand again says, her boat sank in the ocean and she cannot save herself from herself. She's an absolute disgrace, a woman without a life jacket.
Tragicistan, as we say on this show.
Not only do we have the poetic wording, but she's also capitalizing every letter. So it feels it's like a Trump tweet.
That's
almost,
effort.
You know?
I love, lovely. I love a little bit of artistic flair.
100%. Notarized lizard, not a lizard person, says one of the times she brought up the GOP that support her, he should have asked why Trump is supported by two former Democratic POTUS candidates.
There we go. We can go bar for bar, okay? We can go M for M.
MD says, claims there are 80 pages of policy on her website, but articulates not one in interviews. This tells me that she did not write a single one of those policies.
She always says like small businesses are the backbone, and that's why we're going to give them this extra like tax deduction thing, which she didn't understand was like a tax deduction in the past. She thought it meant just giving small businesses $50,000. At least that's the way that she articulated it. So she's done some work on that policy point. And then the $6,000 tax credit is typically what she's leaning on. So two of her, apparently 80 different policies?
Yeesh. Well, maybe she needs to add the page about the forgivable loans to black men.
Right.
Policy. That's
$20,000 for all my black brothers out there who want to become entrepreneurs.
For all the brothers who aren't showing up.
America.
Kamala. That's my bad, Obama. Your Obama's better than mine.
My Obama's better than yours.
TJ says, jump on here. Didn't expect a live show. I don't know where you're at, but it is almost midnight by me. Hope everyone's having a good night. I watched Trump Bloomberg air down, and he handled that like a champ. Vote Trump.
Yeah, he does well in adversarial interviews because he just does not give a shit. And that's the thing. That's the type of energy that you need if you're going to be president. We'll go through your super chats. I think we'll close out at 9 here, if that makes sense, right? It's late.
All right, we got 5 minutes. We're going to blaze through these last ones.
Yes, we are.
Albadam says the DNC is imploding faster than the Titan submersible. Ouch.
Too soon. Too soon.
Timothy W says funny that she says to get rid of the filibuster when she's its most avid user. Faith Prettyman says, love you, random, but would you ever want to be a guest on Jillian Michaels' podcast as a moderate conservative?
Duh. I would love to talk to Jillian Michaels. She was like, it was like me going on Dr. Phil. It was like, you've been a fixture in my childhood. Jillian Michaels was like kind of like on basic cable with like The Biggest Loser and all that stuff and her whole like weight loss thing. So like, I would love to be in the same room as Jillian Michaels and just kiki it up.
DK Fishing and Outdoors says, giving you $20 to remind you that we had 3 potential presidents with classified materials where they shouldn't be. Hillary Clinton had those servers that got deleted.
God. Dude, and just run the roster. I bet there's so many different presidents who have classified documents. We're just making a bigger deal out of it than it actually is because it was Donald Trump. And then they weren't expecting President Biden to also have classified documents, which, shocker, I bet we're going to find like every president in history has had classified documents where they weren't supposed to be. But they got ahead of themselves trying to get Trump.
Wiped my servers? You mean like with a cloth? Good times. Good times. Wayne Mods says, who's going to be the third candidate now since Kamala has been crushed? I saw someone tweet, like, do you think they can substitute Biden back in?
Yeah, right.
Nancy Panasic says, hey, Amala, do you think immigrants, illegal or not, should get to vote? Thank you for your time.
Illegal or not?
Legal or not.
Legal.
Or illegal or not. Legal, yes. Illegal, no.
Yeah, exactly. Legal. If you become a citizen, absolutely, you can vote. If you're not, nope. Bye-bye.
All right, Grace Yowell just sent super chat, no message. Thank you, Grace. The Great Dane 417. They did what? Posse is what keeps the military from enforcing laws in the United States. It essentially protects the citizens from martial law.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. I was unfamiliar. I didn't know he was chill like that.
Pakadia says, so excited to finally tune into a live. Thank you so much for all the work you do. You all are inspiring.
Thank you.
Scott Ward says, it's really fun having a few drinks with you all. Cheers. This was super.
Yeah, we've never done a drinking game on the show before. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to sit through this, we're going to have a fun time doing it.
I'm like, if we doing this after 9 o'clock, I'm sorry, all right, it's past 5 o'clock somewhere. It's time to crack one open. Wayne Mod says, can you imagine how wasted she had to get after that interview? Kamala on wine like Diddy on oil.
Oh, no. Not
at Costco.
Yikes.
Which actually didn't happen. Yeah, anyways. Anahata Sundamar Murthy says, all the way from India here, I've been following your channel for the better part of 2 years.
Awesome.
There's a book I must recommend, Snakes in the Ganja by Rajiv Mehta. It explains how CRT is co-opted to the caste system fight here. There's more to it, but word limit.
I'll look it up.
I can totally see that, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything with oppressor-oppressed dynamics, and I could see the caste system totally being, used, them applying the CRT lens to that.
Definitely.
Chris the Trucker says, late night A&T? Yay, this is the most cringe Scamala interview ever, but at least it wasn't a softball one. Good coverage from you both.
Thank you. We try. Yeah, it wasn't too softball. Brett held his own.
Sergio Sarmiento says, damn, 2 in a row? Kamala ate that up. Ate doo-doo, that is. Hope you guys have a beautiful night.
Wow, what the plot twist I wasn't expecting in that super chat.
Ate doo-doo. Oh, dear. Just Mrs. Duke says, I'm 53 and you helped me start paying attention.
Oh, love that. Everybody drop your age in the chat. I want to know how old the people are watching right now. Don't send me as a super chat. You don't have to send me money. Just let me know.
Yaya Muffin says, good to catch both lives today. Much love from the IE.
Oh my gosh.
What is that, like 4 hours of content?
Yo, that's a dedicated viewer right there. That's family. That's family.
Liz says, so glad to finally catch you live. I'm a photographer and I have your videos playing all the time as I edit. Thank you for the work you do.
That is so cool. I love knowing what you guys do in your daily lives. Awesome.
I edit a bunch of our shorts and some of our other content. I wish I could listen to stuff while I'm editing, but it requires like video. I think requires more focus. Maybe pictures I could see.
Yeah, fair enough. Wow, your
Mike.
ages are all over the place. That is so awesome. Apparently, one of you is 106. Wow.
Wow.
Been around. You've seen a lot.
I hope you're not lying. That feels like a lie.
It does feel like a lie.
We can see our demographic info in the analytics to fact check you there. So.
Well, his profile picture looks like a monkey NFT, so I'm going to imagine you are not 106 years old. Okay.
Okay, a couple more here. I think we're going to make it this last minute. Liz says, so glad to finally catch you guys live. I just read that. Oh my gosh, I've been wasting time. Zero Mike says, who is the biggest threat? Kamala? Well, according to Call of Duty, it's Iran.
There we go.
Vinny Chase sends a super chat no message, and Gina Leone just sends an emoji with a little dancing thing that says #1 on it. And is that everybody? Did we make it?
I think we made it, brother. We made it. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. We had to watch this Fox News interview. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below after we end the stream. I'm loving looking at your ages all streaming in all across the board. So cool to have this big community that of hopefully like-minded. Although if you're not like-minded, you're welcome here too. We like hanging out and hearing your thoughts. If you guys like this stream, please give it a like. Subscribe if you want to catch up and keep up with everything that we're going to be posting on this channel, and hit the notification bell to be notified when we do these sort of pop-up lives out of nowhere. Hope you didn't miss it and you did get to catch it live, and if you didn't, click that notification bell. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace be with you. Please be unburdened.